And we're live. Okay, so who am I talking to today?
I am Fruit Basket.
All right, and
Not
mm,
not to be confused with the anime. No Fruit Baskets. There's not a S on the end or Z. However they do it.
yes, yes, yes. This is Fruit Basket, also known as Juicy Fruit, Fruit Gusher. I forget what else I called you. um,
Fruit related things.
yeah. You had the Juicy title for a while. That was fun.
It was
Um,
fantastic.
how long have you been playing this game for?
A little over a year.
Mm, mm,
So I'm not much of a gamer. I do not qualify as part of the gaming community. I got introduced to this game by Alora, another member of the FC. Um, So yeah, it's been fun. I've never played a game like this before. Like the most recent game before this I played was like God of War.
okay. Like
So
the recent ones, right? With the
re-
okay, okay.
but
So
so being able to interact with people and just like all the stuff you can change, just the HUD settings. I'm impressed with the I am.
yeah, the HUD settings are something else. You really really got to tweak those things to make it not super obtrusive and right in the middle of your screen all the time.
I
Um,
mean, not
hmm.
to date but my mass majority is a NES experience. So this is miles beyond that.
I mean, hey, that's fine. That's where I got my start. Was the NES. I think my first game was Mike Tyson's Punch Out. Um, yeah, yeah. Before they replaced him with Mr. Dream. So yeah, so that was the majority of your experience before you got in this was just like NES games and that one God of War game.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Damn. All right. This is a little bit different than the days of Contra and Super Mario Brothers. Now
Oh my, fantastic.
we moved on a bit. Yeah. Um, so how's your experience been so far then?
It's been great. I mean, you're dealing with real people, so there's good ones and bad ones. Uh, but the majority, it's been a great experience and a very like welcoming community.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which it's great. First online friend, like you don't understand. Like I never talked to people on without the intention of ever meeting them really before. The whole thing is
Mm.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I imagine that would be a bit of a shock to get used to. I kind of got eased into it, I guess, a little bit easier than you did because I kept gaming from the NES era forward, like through the Super Nintendo, N64, got into PCs. I think I got my first PC in like '99.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but we had dial up until like 2006. Uh,
Right.
so I had like Yahoo chat rooms and stuff where you play checkers against random people online, but it was never the same people. Like it was always just whoever was in that chat room that random day you would talk to and then never hear from again, right?
Right.
Um, and then like it was a slow transition to other online games like Left 4 Dead when I finally got DSL. I think that was the first one that I really made friends in, and
Mm.
then eventually all leading up to this where there's now fucking how many are there of us now, like 270
There's
something.
more
There's a lot.
are.
Obviously not all online at the same time,
Right.
but
That'd be
still,
whack.
no, that'd be insane. I wouldn't. I don't think I'd be able to handle that. But it's a lot of people to keep straight, especially when you don't have real faces to put with the names, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's the most challenging part for me, honestly, is that like if I associate the character with the person and sometimes the voice with the person if we talked in voice chat like me and you have.
Right.
But like if I'm not that familiar, sometimes the names kind of blend together at that point. Like,
There's an awful lot of cat girls. I'm just gonna say that.
I take offense to
I'm just,
that.
if there weren't like names on top of everybody, I probably wouldn't be able to pick any of y'all out from each other. To be
Listen here.
honest,
Listen here. I didn't
is that
call you in here to be
you all look
racist against
me?
Miklos. Look here. You all look alike. I see how it is. We can't all be tall green Hulk women, okay?
Hey, I'm stoked that I chose that because it is so rare to see femros as player characters.
No, it is super rare. I think rows are the most rare race to be played as, if I remember the stats right. Um,
It's fun to be
yeah,
tall.
yeah. I can definitely see that being the case. I can also definitely see the case where you might get random tells in certain locations, asking people to be stepped on or something like that. Have
I
you got anything like that?
know in Balmung with Nyx that
Hmm.
much.
Yeah, well, the bad part is, even though Balmung gets the reputation, it doesn't have to be Balmung. You can just get it in Limsa in our Aetheryte.
Honestly, the most I've been said to was about my name and the anime.
Okay, yeah, that makes
I,
sense.
I enjoy anime, but that one's not my cup of tea. I
Yeah,
tried.
I don't even know that one. I'll be honest with you. Like, at the beginning, when you're like, well, it's not fruit baskets, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm out of the loop on that one.
It's
Um,
alright if
mhm.
you're not in just kind of like day to day life anime.
Mhm.
It's probably a thing.
I I feel like an imposter sometimes because this is a very anime game,
It is.
and I'm not that into anime. Like I've seen some of the mainstream ones. I've seen Attack on Titan. I've seen Sword Art Online. Probably the most obscure that I will ever get is Your Lion April. Um,
There's some incredibly obscure hentai, but we don't have to talk about.
I mean, I guess we could if you really want to go there, but I don't really know their names. I just, searches come up and hmm,
Private history. Uh-huh.
the although to be honest with you, kind of wrapping it back around from the hentai to the limsa, I'm surprised you haven't got more lewd tells because I figured with you playing such a rare and very tall race that someone would have horny hit on you by this point. Because even I've
Yeah.
gotten random tells, and I'm just a cat girl.
Interestingly, the most I've been involved in like sexy talk was as somebody else's privates.
Mm,
So they were RPing, and
yeah.
somehow I was in the party. I got involved, but I wasn't a part of it.
Was it Nyx? I
It
swear
was Nick, of
of
course,
course. Of course it was Nyx. Was
but
doing me proud, Nyx.
yeah, no, not so much. I usually don't talk to me anyway. I'm not generally looking at the chat feed.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard for you to type because you're on PlayStation, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that is a bit of a hindrance. You'd have a hard time. Not an impossible time, but you'd have a hard time.
it's definitely. Um, I am curious to see what it would be like to play on a console, or I'm sorry, a computer, a
Yeah,
PC, whatever.
yeah.
Um, just because of all the how the bar's laid out and uh, but I like it. I'm not a PC gamer whatsoever.
Well,
So
obviously on the PC, it's going to be a little bit different because like you have kind of the cross hotbar system on console, which I've heard that this game is actually very console friendly to play. I can't imagine it because I've only ever played it on PC, so I'm used to my three rows of hotbars that have like 12 keys each, just always on my screen. I can't
it,
imagine like cycling through.
you have to like pick and choose what's on that main front one,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. Um, I still kind of have that same issue, but for me, it's because I don't have an MMO mouse. So numbers 1 through 6 of my first three hotbars are
Mm.
easy, and then everything else is like everything past that, like 7 and beyond, are I
Mm.
barely ever hit these skills, and so they're within clickable reach because I am not going to reach across my keyboard to hit that key.
Right.
Like, and there's better ways
Uh,
to do it. You could like reassign different keys to do it. I've had people who have done like the QWERTY keys, like QWERTY instead,
mm.
to add additional in reach keys, but those are my movement keys. So
Right. Interesting. Very
yeah.
interesting. I've been around. I know about gamers. I know about the
Mm,
games and stuff.
mm.
I'm
Yeah.
usually just a sure.
Are about this game, do you find that you're more into like the gameplay aspect, like the rating, or is the story more your thing?
Um, I I know it's gonna make some people mad. I could really give. Are we allowed to cuss in this?
Yes.
I could give a fuck less about the storyline. I play because it is entertaining and to share a hobby with my boyfriend.
Hmm.
Outside of that, yes, I love the community. I'm getting to make friends online. I love doing raids and just doing stuff with them in game. Honestly, my main focus is glam. Like 3 pages of my inventory that I always have on me so I can always use them anytime is all dye because I only give a fuck about glam. I do the raids to do the raids. I do the stuff to upgrade my main, which is Dragoon.
Yeah.
Get glam.
Okay. Okay. I mean that's a valid reason. Although I do have to remove you from the FC now because you said you don't care about the story. That's the rules.
Oh,
Um, we
it
can't
is
have that. I'm sorry. Shadowbringers was the greatest thing ever, and I can't have you be
it,
around after that.
it is
Uh,
fun. Like all the little side. The Manderville storyline was my absolute favorite.
okay, okay, you can stay. Uh, the Manderville thing actually is funny you brought that up because I was actually a Manderville hater early on, like
It's
over
so
Realm
whack.
Reborn. Yeah, it is. I thought it was cringe in a Realm Reborn. Like when they did that, I wasn't fully invested in the story yet. I did it like as I finished a Realm Reborn, and I'm like, this is cheesy. I don't like this, and then I dropped it.
Oh,
Now I love it. Now it's my favorite thing in the world. But yeah, it's one of those things that had to grow on me, basically.
fair enough.
Yeah.
I did. I have seen a lot of the story. I did end up skipping towards the end of Dragoon because Dawn Trail was coming out, and I wanted to make sure and have somebody leveled up to 100 or 90 at that point.
Right.
Um, so I did try to pay attention to a lot of the story. I was encouraged to.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people here will encourage you to pay attention to the story because I find that that's the majority of what they're invested in is the story for most people. Not everybody.
Yeah.
Some people like the rating, some people like the hardcore rating, and then other people just use it as like a social network, basically.
Right.
Um, which, honestly, we've kind of seen how being too into the story can backfire during certain parts of our expansion process too
Mm-hmm.
because the patch content for Endwalker was a little bit slow. Not everybody was into that, and we saw a drop off in the player base. And then Dawn Trail came out, and not everybody was a big fan of the Dawn Trail story. And then player base dropped out again as soon as they got done with it. So it's good to kind of have a mix in there of what you like.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I love the scenery. As far as like, I'm sorry, I know this is the whole point of the storyline is the actual characters that you're introduced to and stuff. I love the scenery and the general continuation of the overall plot.
yeah.
Um, but if you ask me to pick out particular people that I like or didn't like, I'll tell you.
Well, For this expansion at least, I could understand that. If it was overall, we might have problems again. But
Well, again,
I'm
it's
just
not
kidding.
like I live with somebody who's played it, over a decade since the very beginning, so they are
Right.
highly interested in like all of it,
Yeah.
and I just don't have that.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the mind frame that I'm coming from too. Is that like I've played this off and on for 10 years or more at this point. I've kind of lost track. And yeah, the first probably 6 years of that was really casual and kind of by myself, which is not the ideal way to do this for anybody out there that's watching. Um,
If I
the
didn't have the FC, I
right,
honestly couldn't.
right. No, it's an awful experience solo. It really is. Um, but the last like 4 to 5 years of playing were in this FC with a bunch of people around, and that's really the way to do it. And that got me really invested. And then when they told me to pay attention to the story,
Right.
because to kind of tell on myself a little bit, when I did it for the first like 5 or 6 years, nobody told me that the MMO story was actually decent. So I
Mm.
skipped all the cutscenes, and then wondered why I was bored when I hit the 100 fetch quests in between A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Ward. uh, So when I actually paid attention and really got into it and had people around me, like that's when I got really engrossed in it. And then that's my mindset going into it too, is a long time investment thing. So I wouldn't expect other people to have that same mindset. Now that being said, like you said, glamour is the big thing that you do in here. Are you carrying around like spare outfits outside of the glamour plates on you just to be able to glamour over?
Uh, mm, I mean, I do from time to time, like
Mm,
Eureka, the Eureka plate. Um, Here I have just a bathing suit plate.
yeah.
Um, but mostly it's just per class, per role job.
Gotcha. Okay. The reason I ask is because we used to have somebody in the FC that they ran out of glamour plates, and that wasn't enough for them. So they carried spare outfits, and they would just change into the outfits regardless of their item level. And
Okay.
so they would just be wearing the outfit. They would make new gear sets just for outfits. And then they would forget, and they'd queue for content, and then they get in the content, and they had like 2,000 health when everybody else had like 13,000. And they'd have
Oh,
to
wow.
switch their armor.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, we make do around limitations, right? The other part is there is a lot of glamour to collect in this game. We have what, 900 slots in the glamour dresser now.
Is it something like that? 800 or 900? Yeah.
Is either 800 or 900, and mine is full.
Eight.
Just
I've been.
keep
Yeah,
it informed.
mine's getting. That's I don't even. Well, I only have 7 people fully leveled, so I'm still starting with the glam for everybody.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's another thing I kind of take for granted, I guess, at this point, is that all my classes are pretty leveled, and I'll be honest with you, like part of the reason I did that was because it gave me more glamour options.
That's why I like leveling people. I
Yeah.
want people at the highest level so I can attach whatever glam I want.
Yeah, yeah, and then you can get like the really fancy glams, like if there's just a weapon you like, but it's part of one of the long weapon quests, like the deluxe weapons or something in Heaven's Ward, like you have that option now. Like it's really, yeah, it opens a lot of doors. It really does. And then some of the nicest looking outfits are specific to one class, like it's class gear, and that
Yeah,
sucks.
but that I try. So personally,
Mm,
I try and get all the classes with their individual gear.
yeah.
So I try very specific, like they're them. I know a lot of people could really care less about glam. I love it. I love having them all
Uh,
have different personalities.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of people care a lot about glam in this game, to be honest with you. But I'm to the point now that I have so many classes that they can't all have their own outfit. I don't have
Yeah,
enough glamour plates.
not forward to that. I'm gonna do all my crafters and gatherers last, so like
Yeah.
I don't have to their glam plates yet. And
Yeah. I that they were the ones that got sacrificed for me. All of my crafters and gatherers have the same glam set. And it's very
yeah,
sad because some of them have really nice outfits that's just for their class in particular. Weaver is actually one that has a lot of really nice tops.
really nice.
Yes, and you can't use them outside the Weaver class. Not even the other
Oh,
crafter classes. And it's ridiculous.
I'll get there. I'll get there.
Yeah, you will learn my frustration when you get there, and you'll be like, "This looks so nice," and I can't take it into combat. Like I
Well,
can't.
I can only hope, along with expansions to the game, we'll be
Right.
allowed glam plates eventually.
Or
As a look at me from the other side of the couch.
I uh, I really hope that on top of the extra glamour plates that they eventually do unrestricted glamour, where it doesn't matter what class you have, just wear
Hmm.
whatever. Like,
Well, they made
hmm.
a lot of the sex ones where you can interchange them now, so that's nice.
Yeah, a lot of the sets are interchangeable now. They are working on that. A lot of level one glamours are now like multi-class that weren't before and stuff like
Mm.
that. But like, there's so many that are just locked down to specific jobs, and they've said before in live letters that they do it that way because they feel like it would break immersion to see like a black mage running around in full like plate armor. But there's already armor sets that you can do that with.
See,
So,
Allure and I have
hmm,
had this conversation. I feel like, and I know there's different zones, and the different people from different zones are dressed in this way, which was his point, and which makes sense. But like, if I'm running around, say Gridania,
yeah,
if if I see somebody with sneakers and a t-shirt and jeans on,
right.
it's kind of already like, and mind you, that's me half the time. I'm not hating on anybody.
Right.
But for me, that already like takes out part of the immersion.
Yeah. Yeah. Their reasoning never made any sense to me.
It just with the different zones and with the different people and all the different glam options.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. It doesn't make any sense for that to be their reasoning. I've had the same experience before, and it's really bad in my experience for the story related like dungeons and stuff. If you don't have friends going with you, where you just queue with randoms, and then it's like it's a really emotionally impactful dungeon or like cutscenes happen in there or something, and then it pans to your party after the initial cutscene, and there's just like a naked dude with a pig head, or something like that, you know?
Those two.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't think that they need to be using that reasoning anymore because I just want to have so many more options than we do. Um, for you said your main class is Dragoon.
Yes, correct.
So what made you actually pick Dragoon?
Well, in the beginning, there's a lot of options. I knew I didn't want to be a healer. No hate to healers. I just don't like being responsible for other people being alive.
True.
Though I am growing more and more fond of Sage.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
so I knew I didn't want to be a healer. I was given a rundown of all the cl- classes. I keep wanting to call them no, they're jobs. I call them classes, but they're jobs. Anyway,
Eh.
um,
Yeah.
tomato, tomato.
Yeah.
It basically boiled down to I wanted to do DPS, and then my experience whatsoever with games is like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, and those are all like up close fighting. So
Hmm.
out of the melee DPS options, that just it was suggested to me as a not too complicated, not too uncomplicated, like general good first person to try,
Yeah.
and I agree. I quite like Dragoon.
It's a little more complicated now than when you started it, I feel.
I
Um,
really do
hmm.
not appreciate the very most recent change to it, personally.
Yeah, yeah, I can kind of agree with that. I I think I've said this in one of my other interviews at some point, but Dragoon was actually my first class too. That was what I started as.
Nice.
I kind of had a similar train of thought to you that I I played very little MMOs before this one.
Mm.
I played RuneScape, which has no class system, not really. I played Guild Wars, which just had like an NPC henchman system, and I mainly went with them. And Terra, which I only stuck with for like 2 months. And then I went to this one, and I didn't want to be responsible for healing. I didn't trust myself with that. I didn't want to be responsible for tanking because I didn't know how it worked, and I didn't want to be yelled at. And out of the options we had at the time, Dragoon is the one that looked the coolest to me. So I just went with that. I went pure aesthetics, basically.
I will say I went warrior for my second, and
Mm.
it it's nice.
Yeah, yeah, it is nice. The Again, the experience that we had would be a little bit different now, because when I first picked Dragoon, the max level cap was 50 still.
Oh, geez.
Um, so I had a lot more skills by level 50, and leveling experience was a little different. I actually had to level Marauder before you actually get Warrior. I had to level Marauder to 15 to even unlock Dragoon. That was a requirement. And so I did have a little bit of experience with. Thankfully, they cut it off at 15 because I did not want to take it into a dungeon. Uh, but
Well, you're
hmm.
so squishy at that level still anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was also very different then because there was no actual tank stance. It was
Oh,
just different skills generated different levels of enmity on the enemies, and you had to balance that with doing damage, and you just had to make sure your enmity stayed higher than the rest of the party. It was actually a very real possibility for your party to pull aggro away from you back then.
oh, glad it's not like that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I remember very specifically that Dragoon had a skill that unlocked at, oh god, I can't remember what level now. I want to say it was in 20s. It might have been in 30s. But it was called Keen Flurry. And the only thing the Keen Flurry did was it increased your parry rate in case you pulled enemy aggro. That way you could survive. So you having like better armor than other DPS classes actually mattered then because you might
Right.
actually get aggro and get hit.
That's another thing. I don't know all the. There's so many nuances to this game. Like the harder hitting DPS or more armored DPS,
Yeah,
or like if you're in a party and it's time to limit break, like who should actually do the limit break? And
there is some nuance to that. Yeah, and I mean to be fair, a lot of people really still don't know some of that stuff, and a lot of it's been streamlined a bit. Like now, as a DPS, your armor rating in general doesn't matter all that much because most of the time you're not pulling aggro away from the tank unless they're very bad at their job, which can happen still. But as far as like the limit break stuff, you know, for dungeons, generally it's better to use limit break on the mob pools before the boss because you don't get enough limit break to really hurt the boss all that much. And yeah, there's stuff like that. But back then it was there were cross class skills that you could learn only by leveling up other classes besides your main. I don't know if Allure has mentioned that before, if he's ever talked about how it used to be or not.
maybe
Maybe.
I don't.
Tuned it out.
I can't remember.
Yeah, yeah, that's
There's
fine.
so much about this game.
There's a ton. Yeah, it's been through so many changes. And honestly, like, there are parts of that system that I do miss, but I think that the game is in a better state now than it was then, as far as that goes. Back then in the Realm Reborn, they were kind of trying to be like WoW 2.0, with kind of customization and stuff like that, and it just wasn't really their bag. They didn't really do that great of a job at it. We even used to be able to pick what stats would get like stat bonuses upon level up. Like you had to assign extra vitality or strength, um,
I mean
or hmm,
that's not far off from a lot of other games.
yeah, it's not. It had a problem though because we had a stat called accuracy back then that
Hmm.
you could literally miss with your skills.
Oh.
If it didn't reach a certain threshold for certain content, you would not hit with some of your skills and it would reset your combo.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
again, like I said, I think it's in a better state now than it was back then.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, as far as the other parts of this game, because you said you really liked the locations and stuff like that earlier, and Dawn Trail does have a lot of really nice locations that they added. Like, there's some really pretty locales.
Oh, yeah.
Um, when we were gonna do this interview, I asked you to sort of like pick your favorite spot as for us to do it in, and you picked here, which is in the same spot as our FC house. Um, why did you pick here?
So I like here. So since this is the location the FC house is at,
Hmm.
uh, I'm in this general area a lot. Um, and I was just wandering around one day and found it, and it's just, you go AFK. It's not
Yeah.
always, and if I'm just like sitting and looking at my phone in the meantime or whatever, I just like coming down here to chill because generally nobody else is down here, and
True.
it's just like, I guess even in game, I like to have alone time from time to time. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get that. There's actually a lot of little spots like this hidden away in the game that people don't frequent or they forget about or they never found. There's, you know about the other hot spring in this same area, right?
I don't.
You don't. Okay. After we're done with this, I'll show you where it's at.
Ooh.
There is a second hot spring behind another house in the district. Um, there is obviously the lighthouse out uh, past the beach down there, which has a jump puzzle that you can get on top of. Our own FC house has a jump puzzle to get on top of that, obviously, that is designed that way. And there's just a bunch of little nooks and crannies everywhere throughout different spots in this game that are just sort of hidden. It is very peaceful here. I will say that it is pretty nice.
We are facing away from it right now, but it's fun to just sit and look at the graphics in this game. I'm so impressed because, again, I'm used to like, like the first Tomb Raider with like box tits.
They were triangles. Thank you.
Oh, color, color. But no, I'm sitting here and just looking at the sky. Like,
Oh yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
big go out grass person. I love nature
Mhm.
in IR. So if
Yeah.
I'm not going to nature IRL, it's nice to look at nature on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. I can get that. The it's sad that because we have the Christmas event going on still right now. I don't know if that's the reason why it's cloudy or if it's just cloudy in the area. But I tried to pan up and actually look at the stars because during the clear nights the stars are actually really
It's
vibrant.
They are. It's really like it looks like they put like constellations and stuff up and like Milky Ways and like
Yeah, yeah. One of my favorite screenshots I ever took in this game is just literally a shot of my character's back with the camera panned up just at the night sky, and it's just full of stars. It's great. I love it, and I'm also a big like outdoors person too. Like I love nature,
Mhm.
just in general, and so like I've several times just found nice nature spots to just sit down in and go AFK for while I'm doing something.
Yeah.
I know that Mimi's got a spot in the Asm Step that she likes to sit at that kind of overlooks everything, overlooks the whole like Meadowlands out there.
That's
Yeah, there's a
I like
couple of oh god.
I like going into the main cities and finding places and trying to get up on them. Um, like there's the overhangs.
Yeah.
Those are pretty easy to get on, but there's the overhang off to the right where you could go to Old Gridania.
Yeah.
And you can totally get up on that, but
You,
people don't.
you absolutely can. Yeah.
It's just fun to sit in impossible place.
I remember the first time somebody showed me how to get up there, and it was, I want to say it was like 3 years ago when I finally figured out how to actually get up on top of those, and that's a great spot to hang out. I agree. There's a bunch of spots like that all throughout, and there's so many. We kind of talked about in the FC chat earlier, me and a couple other people, but there's so many jump puzzles that are hidden in the game to get to really high spaces that just overlook like really scenic views. It's ridiculous because they don't have to put it in there, but they do.
Right. I have a love-hate relationship with jump puzzles.
I imagine it's a very different beast to tackle when you're on controller.
Well, I'm just not. Basically, everything in this game is kind of a new experience.
Yeah.
And like, y'all, it's a skill. Y'all have been training at gaming for decades.
Some of us, yeah.
It's a matter of I'm a novice as far as all that goes. Learning how to do all the like just example. If we were in like a first person shooter game, I'd be the person spinning around looking at the sky. So just figuring everything out is But yes, jump puzzles. I long to be good at them. I am not yet though.
It is a practiced skill. I talked earlier about Kugane Tower because that's where I was when we decided to do this interview, and the very first time that I tried to climb that tower, I tried it by myself for probably 40 minutes without a guide or anything like that, and did not make it. Then somebody showed me a couple of jumps and like how they positioned themselves, and then I made up after like another 20 minutes. So it took me about an hour the first time, and now I can get up there in like 25 seconds. Like it's so much easier now. But
It makes me want to punch babies.
well, I mean that are getting paid, right? Yeah, FC conversations everybody misses out on if they're not in here. They've got that one summer event where they bring out the jump puzzle. Yeah.
That was I tried. Even with the Fall Guys. That I was I'm just not good. I'm trying. I'm learning. I'm developing skills.
I feel like I would be very bad at even the Fall Guy stuff if I was trying to do it on a controller as of right now, because I kind of pivot my character by holding down the right mouse button to kind of like spin in place to position myself for things. And I don't think you can do that with a controller.
You can. The left L3.
Oh, you have to. Oh, I see.
You have to use the L3 and R3 for movements.
Okay. Oh wait, no, it's just the sticks themselves. You don't have to, because L3 R3 is clicking in the joysticks for the buttons.
Oh, apologies.
Okay.
Yes, no, just
okay. I thought you were saying you had to like toggle it on and then turn. I'm like, oh god, no. Like
No.
tank controls, no. Okay, that makes more sense. So yeah, if you could do that, then I might be okay. But yeah, the the summer event that has that that jump tower, like the base part that you just have to get to complete the little like seasonal quest thing, that's not a big deal. That's easy. But then the hidden part where you get to the actual top of that tower, that's still a nightmare for me.
I didn't make. I tried. I made it to the part. I tried going up to the top part, and just after a while, it was just like I can't.
I think it took me a cumulative like 3 hours to get up there for the first time, and then I never got down. Like I did my cues up there.
You finally made it.
Yeah.
No, I flew as close as I could fly on a mount and scoped it out that way.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you for that. I I stayed there so long that I logged out, and then I logged in and the event was over. My character spawned in the air and then fell into the ocean.
That's funny.
I refused to move for that whole event.
I will say my only complaint for having a controller is in Eureka with the damn sleeping dragons that you have to walk by.
Yeah, you died next to that.
Like manually walk, and it's tipping your
Yeah,
stick. If you tip your stick too far, you're not walking anymore. You're running.
you gotta get some stick control. But yeah, did you see me try to rush in there real fast and teabag you before they res you?
Oh, I didn't. You would though.
I I showed up as an Astro when you called out for a res because I was just there because I think it was Ashton had asked for directions on how to get to a certain part up there, so I had went there, and I saw you call out for help, and I'm like, oh, okay, this will be funny. So like I got on Astro and ran over there, but Rothy got there right before me as I was walking to your corpse because I didn't want to aggro the dragon.
I saw you walking. I said, and like shortly after you dipped out, and I was like, "Wait, where'd Sin go?"
I couldn't do my mission, so I just left. Y'all had aggroed the dragon, and I'm like, I don't want that, so I dipped out.
Just came in for some teabagging.
Yeah. I mean, I came in to give Ashton directions, but he already figured it out by then, and I'm like, well, while I'm here, I might as well do a side quest. But I had to walk because I wasn't gonna wake the sleeping dragon, and then the time it took me to walk, Rothy resed you. I missed it. Missed it by like a second.
Your teabag were thwarted.
Yeah, next time. Speaking. Speaking of different content like Eureka and stuff, what do you think is the thing that you've done in this game that you're maybe the proudest of? Since you haven't really done a lot of gaming since like the NES days.
I'm most proud of well, I die a lot. I'm not gonna lie and say I don't.
Oh, you're a dragon.
But the more extreme content is really fun. It's kind of a tighter knit group because not everybody's into the extreme content. Just trying to achieve those, getting your gear levels, getting the stuff to get your gear leveled, the camaraderie with the people that enjoy the harder content. It's more challenging. I like it. It's harder to do. Like we just tried to do the chaotic raid. It's a raid, right?
We tried the Alliance raid, yeah.
And without spoilers, it was fucking hard, and I loved it.
I've not tried it myself. I've heard this very hard. I've also heard that there's like 6 different strategies being passed around for how to handle it because there's no definitive guide out right now.
Well, as was said by other people in the party, it's hard to get because it's a 28 man.
It should be 24. Yeah.
24 man. It's just hard to get that many people on the same page.
Yes, absolutely. There is a savage version of Delubrum, I think it is, in Bosnia. I'm thinking that's the one. That also seemed to be kind of a similar level of difficult from what people told me. Again, this is secondhand knowledge because that did not interest me in the slightest. The Chaotic Alliance raid, though, kind of does. If nothing else, just to sort of see what it'd be like, and also because the rewards from it, I think, are going to be a little valuable for a while, and I do like money. Yeah.
That's one thing I do not understand about this. A lot of people get a shitload of gil, and just keep getting it and hoarding it, and you're rich in game and fantastic for you, but why? It's not money.
So my personal experience with this is I have how much? Hold on, let me turn my HUD back on. 65 million right now.
Oh my goodness. I've got like five.
Um, yeah, I've got 65 million right now, and at my peak, I think I had like 80 million or something like that. There is a point where it no longer serves a purpose. For me, I'm keeping this much because I want to try to get a personal large house, which can
Mm,
cost upwards of like 50 million on its own.
right.
But and then the rest will just be for decorating it and stuff like that. They have
Right.
introduced a few gill sink mounts that cost 50 million a piece, or I think one might be like 25 million.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah, I don't really care about those, to be honest
Mm,
with you. The most extreme thing I've seen was shared on Reddit, and it was actually somebody that I knew from my old server that on Lamia that had, I think, a maximum of 8 retainers, all filled with the maximum amount of gold that they could hold, which is 999 million.
oh wow.
And 999,999, and they just did it to do it. And I'm like, you're not playing the game at that point. You have to dedicate so much time to actually making the money that this is not real gameplay at this point. You got like a spreadsheet simulator in front of you at that point.
Like I get you if you got goals like
Yeah,
you want to get a house. But understand. I've talked to a few people where they're just like money, 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 and I'm like, but why? Why?
right,
Literally, why?
right.
But
Yeah,
each their own.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't get it. But it's nice to have. I will say that it does serve to really cut down on your wait time for certain things. There's been
Sure.
several times where it's like, well, you know what? I could gather all the items to craft this thing myself, or I could just buy it off the market board. And I'll look at
Right.
it and I'll be like, you know what? I'll just buy it. It's not worth the time.
Yeah.
And if you were a person that wanted to do like day one savage raids or something like that, and you didn't have crafters leveled and you didn't want to level and gear crafters, you could
Mhm.
just buy the armor that you need for the savage raiding from the market board while it's still like 10 million a piece. You
Right.
know, it does serve as a shortcut, but past that point, no, there's not really any reason other than bragging rights. C number go up, brain happy. Like I don't.
I feel like honestly, I feel like it's almost like a mental. Like we all struggle in real
Mm,
life. You
yeah,
know, are
most of
not
us.
rich.
Yeah,
Uh, at least we can be rich in game, kind of thing.
right, right. Yeah, I feel that one. I feel that one. I'll gladly exchange this. Like, can I exchange it for real world money? Like, I don't even care if it's like a million gil to like $10. Like, I'll take that.
Right. I'm kind of surprised, honestly, because I don't know how it is now, but I know it used to be at some point in time. Like in WoW, you could do stuff like that,
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah. I mean, I guess
But
technically you can do it here too. It's just not, technically
yeah,
by the rules. And you're gonna get undercut by all the Chinese gil sellers. But I guess technically you could. Uh, but yeah,
at playing.
yeah.
No,
Uh,
I've just been fun looking at stuff like the VC dungeons with the fun. There's just a lot of hidden stuff.
yeah, yeah. There's a ton of content in this game. Like I'm finally to the point where the only things that I really have left to do are the really really hard things, like the savages, and the ultimates, and just really difficult challenges like trying to solo Palace of the Dead to floor 200 by myself, or Heaven on High to 100, or Eureka Orthos to 100.
See, I've
Um,
only fully done PD to 50, and I think that was with you.
oh yeah, yeah,
I've done all of those.
yeah.
So much.
We tried to do the group Heaven on High to floor 100, and we died at like floor 81. right? Imagine doing that by yourself. Like,
Uh, I can't. The bosses. The floors themselves fine. The bosses at the end are what get me, and then I'm just
I
like, I
I
give
have the
up.
opposite problem. It's and if you ever actually do try to do something like that solo, you'll end up having the opposite problem too. Is that the floors are the thing that kill you. Like,
Really?
yeah, and
Those.
that's because you know how we wiped on floor 81 to that mammoth like boss or the mammoth like mob, I think, that charged in and trampled us and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's even less manageable by yourself because they hurt a lot, and you have no healing hardly. And then if you ever hit a trap that transforms you, you're just dead. Like,
Mm,
that's it. And you know how many traps we hit that transformed us during that run. I think Rothy was an otter like 10 times. Like,
lot.
uh,
True.
yeah.
But yeah.
Hmm.
Well, that's another. Okay, because I'll talk to people about the game because I
Hmm.
don't. They cut. I try and come at people like I'm not a crazy fanatic. This is just literally one of the only games I can talk to you about. Type, you know.
Yeah.
But I've talked to a lot of people in a lot of games that there's like, I don't like Final Fantasy. I'm like, well, honestly, I don't like the majority of Final Fantasies. Gonna put it out there. I don't like the turn-based system. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
Um, but for this, that's one of the big complaints was, well, once the main storyline's done, there's no content. I'm just like, boy, are you dumb? There's all like every complaint I've heard about the game, it's not like no, there's subscription. Okay, so you pay what, 12, $15 a month. That's going to the movies once.
Yeah.
If you play it for a few hours, a couple of days, you've already paid for your entertainment.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, that's true. Um, I can kind of understand that because I was in the same camp before I started this game. Is that every other MMO that I mentioned before this that I tried did not have a subscription. It was either free or you bought the game and then the playtime was free.
right.
I was a big opponent of having to pay monthly to play something, but I will say this was well worth the investment. I have heard the same complaint from other people about Final Fantasy as a series and not liking the turn-based stuff, and I get that that's not some people's thing. It was my thing, so I was a big Final Fantasy fanboy. The newer Final Fantasies have moved away from the turn-based combat. Like 15, not turn-based combat at all. 16 is an action game, basically. It's God of War.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So if you were going to try a different Final Fantasy, honestly, if you liked God of War and
I do.
you like this game, 16 is probably the best bet for like a different entry point in the series because the same sort of business unit from Square Enix worked on 16. They worked on this game. So you'll
Interesting.
see a lot of very similar things and a lot of similar mechanics to without doing like spoilers really to kind of give you an idea. Like you will run into a behemoth at some point that will call down an ecliptic meteor, and
Right.
and you will see AOE puddles on the ground that are straight out of Final Fantasy 14.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it
That's
uses
fun.
MMO mechanics in an action game, which it's a fun experience. But yeah, I guess to sort of wrap this stuff up here because it is getting close to an hour. Kind of thought it would be, but any any last thoughts or words or anything that you want to get out there while we're still recording?
Um, it's been a blast getting to know people from the FC and getting to play with people and making friends. Because again, this is all new to me. Um, it's fun. It's a fun way to pass time and interact with people. Um, for those who aren't as gamer inclined, I would suggest it.
What is it? What sort of things do you do outside of gaming then, since you weren't that big into gaming before this?
I love art.
Yeah.
Any art related thing, nature. I love like urban exploration, creepy shit. I'll hang out in a cemetery for funsies.
Are you breaking into people's abandoned properties?
If if it's easy.
Hey,
I like exploring things. But yeah,
nobody,
no,
nobody sends
mostly
us
just
the cops.
uh nature and art.
Okay.
That sounds pretty good.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll wrap up there. It was good talking to you. When I get this uploaded, I will ping you in Discord. I don't know how soon it'll be. I'm hoping to get these out relatively fast, so I'd say maybe 2-3 days, depending on how much time I've got to work on it.
Fair enough.
All right.